So it's all bad news today, and action.
Alabama rules that frozen embryos created for in vitro fertilization are children, putting fertility treatments in limbo across the state. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange makes his final plea to avoid extradition to the United States on espionage charges. His fate could impact the future of the free press. Artificial intelligence alters the media landscape again, as copyright cases make their way through the courts and video generators like Sora threaten more jobs in Hollywood. And finally, researchers detect the largest, brightest, hungriest black hole in the universe. The Alabama Supreme Court has ruled that embryos created and stored for in vitro fertilization are considered extrauterine children under the state's Wrongful Death of a Minor Act. The ruling means medical facilities and individuals can be held liable if embryos are destroyed. It also puts the future of IVF in limbo, as local providers pause treatments over potential legal ramifications. Patients are now scrambling to ship their frozen embryos out of Alabama.
Yeah, so this is bummer news. How do you feel about all this?
I feel conflicted. On one hand, the fertility industry is poorly regulated, and women and couples sometimes do lose the embryos and eggs that they froze and stored, and they're doing this in efforts to preserve their reproductive potential. Accidents can and have happened at facilities due to malfunctions, freezer failures, or even in transit. This is something that aimed to address that by setting a regulation. You know, in Alabama, that's what happened. There was an accident that resulted in the destruction of embryos, and couples sued the fertility clinic and they won. But on the other hand, I can't help but wonder if it's actually appropriate to classify embryos as children, because they're not yet a viable life. They're frozen. They haven't yet been implanted in a uterus, so they're not people yet, and yet we've put personhood onto them. So this is something that I think could open the floodgates to chipping away fertility treatments, reproductive rights, and reproductive technologies across the country.
Yeah, my stepmom in Alabama, she had 2 kids she adopted first because she could not get pregnant. But then they came out with some technology in order for her to have her own biological child, and she did. So I would hate to think that this kind of ruling would mean that she could never have done that, have had that 3rd child.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there are already about 1 million eggs and embryos on ice across the country. This could place that in limbo. And when it comes to the people in Alabama, some families have already gone through the process or are right in the middle of the process. In order to get embryos or eggs, it takes so much time, multiple treatments, often taking months. So now they're going to be stuck in the middle of it, trying to figure out what to do with whatever materials they have and send them to another state potentially. It's just wild that this is happening.
Yeah, one of my friends in Alabama wrote me and said that they just have to ignore the news coming out of Alabama all the time. And I was just like, yeah, it does seem like anytime you hear about Alabama, it's a step backwards for mankind.
Yeah.
But that's my state.
Proud Alabaman.
Yeehaw, Alabama.
Yeehaw. It seems to me that America really does hate its children. Like, we have declining fertility rates. People here are trying to create children, and yet the state is coming down and saying that potentially you won't be able to do that anymore if new laws are not passed to really differentiate what constitutes a child and a life.
So the side ramifications, as far as I understand, could be very detrimental to doctors too, because if they're now declaring that an embryo is a child, what if a doctor is properly using one, but it just happens to die through the procedure because the procedures don't work all the time? What happens then?
Exactly. This law, as it's written currently, is a legal minefield. You know, they're intending to address accidents and negligence at this point, but you're right, it could absolutely, this law, be used against doctors just for simply things not going right. You know, embryos, eggs, during egg freezing, things can go wrong just due to us tinkering with nature. And the scientific process is not perfect. And even if it was happening naturally, a woman's body could still reject an embryo.
If you rejected the embryo, could you sue me, the doctor, potentially?
I mean, that's the question.
For murder.
Yeah, that's the bigger issue here. And until these things are clarified, we don't really have the answer. I suppose anything is possible because there has been no other precedent set. So sure, anything is possible. And it is just taking us one step away from technology and progress and reproductive science.
Like I said, yeehaw, Alabama. I expect next year's Alabama news will be, we're going back to segregation.
They wish.
They wish.
They wish.
Mr. Assange, who's an Australian citizen, is wanted in the US for leaking secret military files over a decade ago.
A London court has heard WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's final plea to avoid extradition to the US on espionage charges, bringing the 14-year saga one step closer to its final act. The US government has been trying to extradite Assange from the UK since 2021. In the United States, he faces criminal charges, including 17 counts of violating the Espionage Act for publishing classified military and diplomatic cables on the whistleblowing site WikiLeaks about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Espionage Act makes it illegal to disclose potentially damaging national security secrets to unauthorized individuals. This is the first time the Espionage Act has been used in the United States to charge a journalist or reporter for doing their job.
His case has reopened debate over whether Assange is a journalist and publisher or something more sinister. And many defending him say free speech and an independent press is also at stake.
How was he able to get the information initially?
Most of it came from Chelsea Manning, who at the time was Private Bradley Manning.
Oh, so he as a journalist got it from another military officer.
Who leaked it to him, yes.
Who leaked it to him, and he leaked it to them.
Definitely with Iraq and Afghanistan.
Do you think that Julian Assange understood the risk of what he was doing when he first did it?
I personally think he did know. I mean, as a journalist, you take these risks in the greater good of, public service.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, is that he knew that it was a risk to do that, and he put it out because he felt like the truth needed to be out there, what the military was really up to. And I have seen some of those videos, and they are very revealing about what kinds of things the military does that no one would approve of.
Yeah, they're war crimes. They're actual
Right.
war crimes under international law.
Right. So the way I see it, in our today's modern age, if you're committing war crimes and you've got thousands of people working for you, whether it's the military or any government organization or a corporation, someone's going to feel compelled to want to bring that truth to light because they're going to feel like it's wrong, and it is wrong. So that's the situation.
Yeah, and it's crazy that no one else has been prosecuted for actually committing these alleged war crimes, but he's going to be prosecuted for exposing the truth.
I don't support him being put in prison for that, but as a journalist, how does it make you feel?
It makes me incredibly concerned for the future of press freedoms, because when it comes to Assange, for some reason there is still an international debate over whether he's considered a journalist or not. The government says that he's not because they just don't see him as a member of the press, but they could say that about anybody. And there is really no legal distinction between what Julian Assange has done as a publisher and what news outlets like the New York Times do. A journalist's job is to expose official crimes and cover-ups and help sources maintain anonymity. He's done that with WikiLeaks. Plus, the US government has never alleged that any of the information released by WikiLeaks is false. So far, it's all true. Journalists are allowed to publish information obtained via a third party if it concerns the public. And as you just said, WikiLeaks revelations are of public concern. Some of the information leaked by WikiLeaks includes the collateral murder video, which showed the US military gunning down Reuters news staff in Iraq, the Afghan war logs, which detailed how coalition forces killed civilians, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership investment chapter, the Saudi cables, Guantanamo files, and so on. So these are really important stories that the public has the right to know about, and the outcome of this case is going to impact press freedom, journalism, and publishing if he's extradited to the US.
The United States plotted to murder my husband. This case is an admission by the United States that they now criminalize investigative journalism. It's an attack on all journalists all over the world. It's an attack on the truth, and it's an attack on the public's right to know.
Yeah, okay, now that I understand the story better, I definitely feel like that's wrong to put him in prison for that. Although I do have friends that are against him, that, support him going to jail, and I guess they're in support of the military in that situation, but I don't feel like they understand the story well. I I feel like they're understood the propaganda they've heard from their news organizations that just say, oh, he broke the law, he did something that was against the military, and we got to support the military, rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, and you have to realize this is incredibly damaging information against the United States government. It is incredibly embarrassing, this information, and it's illegal under international law. So, of course, they're going to come after Julian Assange, and they're going to say that he's not a member of the press, but...
Well, yeah, they're looking for whatever angle. I see. What a problem.
We don't know what's going to happen. The case is still ongoing, but a decision is expected to come any day now.
Yeah, it seems like in the world we live in, the military-industrial complex is one of the most powerful organizations that there is, and you can't even criticize it. If you talk about it on YouTube, you don't get seen. Whoops. I probably shouldn't have said that. Probably shouldn't have said that, right? Because now I'm afraid that they're going to censor this video.
Well, and what's fascinating to me is that so much of the press has not reported in depth on this case. They report on it, but like you said, they a lot of times just take the official US government's position, which is not what you're supposed to do as a journalist.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. The military is responsible for going to other countries and getting resources for us, and that's critical to our capitalistic economy functioning, and so anything that could impact the wheels of capitalism profiting has to be turned against, and you have to manipulate the people of the society to think in favor of capitalism. So this is part of that. Am I wrong?
Filmmaker Tyler Perry has suspended plans to expand his production studio after seeing OpenAI's new video generator, Sora, create incredible videos based on simple text prompts. The director, writer, producer says his $800 million expansion is indefinitely on hold. Tyson, this is so crazy that he's decided to change his plans based on Sora.
Yeah, so I started using AI video generators like 6 months ago, Runway mostly, and most of the stuff I generated didn't come out that well. There's a lot of glitches. Sometimes it's really interesting. But then when I saw Sora, I was shocked to see how fast it's come along and evolved. Gosh, a lot of people are scared, I guess, and so this is an indicator of that. If it can progress this fast in only 6 months, what will it be in another 6 months? What will it be in 5 years? Then again, the other side of me says, from the personal experience I've had generating shots with Runway, sometimes it's hard to control it exactly, but if you could one day type in the exact actor that you want, or show them a picture of the actor you want, and it would match that, I guess the technology will eventually get there. Yeah, that's gonna majorly impact everything, every production.
Yeah, that's the thing. Right now, it's a little bit better for stock footage than it is for creating like a super great movie. But as you said, it's absolutely going to improve. Something else I really want to talk about is the training data that's used by AI programs like Sora. OpenAI has a licensing agreement right now with Shutterstock to use its library of images, videos, and music as training data. And this training data issue is becoming a major problem because the New York Times has sued OpenAI, accusing the company of infringing on copyright by training large language models with the newspaper's content. The New York Times wants AI companies to start paying for training licenses. OpenAI argues that the Times can't ask everyone to license training data because that's not how copyright works. And OpenAI says its training models use publicly available internet materials, which fair use precedents allow. For example, the courts previously ruled in favor of Google Book Search, stating that the search engine gives users factual, uncopyrighted information rather than reproducing creative works based on the books that it was trained on, even though snippets of those books are published in search results. But copyright experts say the Times has a compelling case because generative AI training models sometimes do produce creative works that compete with the works that they're trained on. And I'll give you a really good example. Ars Technica did a really good job showing how AI image generators have reproduced exact Mario characters based on a text prompt that says, "Create images of video game Italian plumbers." And it did generate the exact copyright from Nintendo. So this is a really fascinating case to watch, and the outcome could have massive financial consequences for OpenAI that could seriously harm or even bankrupt the company, and it could also have serious consequences for content owners. So hopefully they come to some sort of a settlement that benefits everybody.
Yeah, Nintendo, they are one of the most aggressive copyright pursuers.
Yeah.
Probably can't even talk about them right now. So this is a bummer that of all the things that artificial intelligence could do, like the first thing we're doing, like the first thing we're sending in after is taking out photographers, artists, and now video creators. creators.
And journalists.
Yeah, journalists. It's hard to predict where the future is going to go exactly, and even the CEO of OpenAI, has said such sort of things. I'm hoping that it goes in a direction that is a positive thing, and this becomes a tool that can help, independent storytellers like myself create things that they could never create before. But I would hate for it to be so powerful that it makes obsolete Hollywood or even impacts 50% of jobs. There's more downsides that you could try to see coming than upsides almost.
For now, I do think that if we put laws and safeguards in place in AI programs, then there is the potential to have it be really beneficial for humankind. But as you said, there are also lots of ways that this could go completely wrong. And we are in the wild, wild west days of this technology. So we're going to see good and bad, and we're going to see how the global community comes together, if it comes together, to try to solve this new problem.
I feel like we never can stop technological progress. You can't just hope for it to stop. So what's probably going to happen is that eventually it is going to come to a point that something really bad happens before it's actually regulated in any way, meaningfully.
Yeah, like we already talked about in a prior episode, it took Taylor Swift getting deepfake nuded for anybody to care about this issue, even though it has been a problem. And that's, not a great scenario, but it's not like the worst thing that could happen. I think you're right. We unfortunately have to hit rock bottom a lot of times as humans before we make adjustments in a future that we can see possibly going in the wrong direction.
Yep, it's coming.
Whatever it is,
we're on its way. We are on the way.
Astronomers have detected the brightest, most violent, and fastest growing object in the universe to date. A paper published in the journal Nature Astronomy says it's a quasar, the bright core of a galaxy powered by a supermassive black hole 17 billion times the mass of Earth's sun. It is so hungry that it consumes the mass of a sun every single day and is 500 trillion times brighter than the sun. Don't worry though, it's about 12 billion light years away, which means it stopped growing a long time ago. Even though it's the brightest known object in the universe, it was only recently spotted by Chile's Very Large Telescope. And that's because telescopes around the world produce so much data about black holes that astronomers can't quickly sift through all that information. They typically use machine learning tools to identify and classify objects, but those tools look at similarities rather than outliers like this, which seemed way too extreme to be real. But in this case, astronomers were specifically looking for extreme objects, so they actually avoided using machine learning tools and resorted to more old-fashioned methods to search through this data, and they found this truly mind-boggling discovery.
I think outer space is cool, and there's a lot of neat things out there, but the sizes of things are so huge that there's no way to calculate how to think about it. It's so big. So the idea of a whole sun being sucked up every day, it's like, okay, all right.
I'm with you. I think this is so insanely wild to think about because you're right. These numbers are astronomical. We can't really comprehend them as just little dots on another little dot inside of another dot in all the dots.
Right.
What do you think about these stories? Let me know in the comments and be sure to subscribe if you like this episode. Thanks for watching. I'm Brigida.
She's Brigida.
And I'm Tyson.
And I'm Tyson.